The Bobby O Show.
Welcome to the Bobby O Show. My name is Bob Potsner, and I look forward to a great show with you today. I have my office in Danbury, Connecticut, and have had it there for over 30 years on Deer Hill Avenue, kitty corner away from this town hall. I live in Richfield, and I grew up in Shelton, Connecticut. Danbury, however, in my opinion, combines all the great activities of all those towns and cities I've mentioned to you. It's a diverse community. It's got people who work hard to make this a great place to live and to work. It takes a lot of volunteers, political elected officials, people who just give their time to make this city the great city it is. And today we're going to have with us a very important organization, which I think provides great assets to the community in many different ways. It's the Greater Danbury Chamber of Commerce. And I'm honored to have with me today the president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, PJ Prunty, who's going to talk to us about the activities they do and his background in and living in the city of Danbury, Connecticut. Welcome, PJ.
Excellent. The Bobby O. Thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. It's my pleasure, PJ. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. Well, first, I just want to say that is one heck of an intro. I love that. That is just fantastic lead in here to this show. So, but again, thanks for having me here this afternoon. Beautiful day here in downtown Danbury. My name is PJ Prunty. I'm born and raised here in the city of Danbury. Went through the public schools, a proud product of Danbury Public Schools. Graduated Danbury High School, then went to a small town in Oneonta, New York. It's interestingly enough, my college is half the size of Danbury High School. So that was quite the experience going from a large school to a smaller school for the college. Studied political science there. When I graduated, I had the opportunity to work in Mark Boughton's office, the mayor at the time, and I was his community services coordinator. So I dealt a lot with the public, constituent services, you name it, from mailboxes that have been knocked over by plows to taxes that are too high or potholes that need to be filled. So that's really where I cut my teeth in terms of kind of getting to know the lay of the land and sort of who's who in the zoo, as I like to say. So I was there for about 4 years, then had the opportunity to work at City Center Danbury, which is, for those of you who may not be familiar, it's a nonprofit here in downtown Danbury focused on the revitalization of downtown and Main Street Danbury. And then I had the opportunity to throw my hat into the ring for this role, and I've been in it for about 6 years. It's been a great experience. I love working here at the Chamber. It's a phenomenal opportunity to meet many different businesses and nonprofits, and look forward to continuing to work with the community here. So again, thanks.
I'm glad you liked the opening video because it was created by Christina Britton, whose mom is on the Board of Education in Danbury.
Sure. And her brother's local. I love it.
Local people. She does a great job. She'll be happy for the plug. And number two, we were both poli-sci majors. I was a poli-sci major in college as well. And I guess in this day and age, if you watch the news every day, you better be a poli-sci major, or else you'll forget it. You won't know what's going on. And the third thing is, every time I see PJ, I tell him the same story. I first heard of him when my son played Richfield High School football, about the same era that you played.
Yeah.
And you were a phenomenal player for Danbury. You were a linebacker, I think, as I recall. And whenever was a linebacker?
So it was for running back. I know this was a lot of pounds ago, but it was a running back.
But I always remind PJ that those are the days when Richfield had some really good teams, and so we kind of did well. But I'm glad that you stayed in Danbury. And I'm not a member of the Chamber of Commerce, but I go to many, many of their events. And you have done a really good job. And I'm not just saying that. I wouldn't. If people who know me would know I wouldn't just compliment you just for the sake of complimenting you. I went through your website, and I think your mission of the Chamber of Commerce would be a good place to start, because I think it's a very good mission, and from what I'm seeing, you're accomplishing it. So talk a little about the mission of the Chamber of Commerce.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. And actually, we just went through our strategic planning session in our chamber, which was a great experience. And we took down our mission statement, which was probably about as long as War and Peace, to pare it down to something that's much more succinct. So the new mission is the chamber drives a robust business environment supporting economic vitality and regional collaboration. So we pared it down significantly, and thought that encapsulates it quite well in terms of what we focus on as a chamber to try to accomplish here for our members.
Well, it's interesting. I think the title of your organization is very important. It's the Greater Danbury Chamber of Commerce, and I've noticed that there's a lot of things that you do that don't just benefit the city of Danbury, Connecticut. It benefits my town where I live and other towns in the community. And like you mentioned a little bit about what it is that you do to outreach, so to speak, to benefit what your organization does for towns and cities, not just Danbury.
Yeah, I mean, we often talk about the area here in the Greater Danbury area or even Western Connecticut as being a true sort of regional economy, right? And I find it to be actually pretty unique when you look at the state of Connecticut, for example, in terms of how these towns and cities function. We look at some of our counterparts down Lower Fairfield County or even the eastern part of the state. I feel like there's very sort of siloed off towns and cities. I don't find that to be the case here in the Greater Danbury area. And our name, which is right above my head here, it is the 10-town region. Yes, our offices are located right in the heart of downtown Danbury, but we work with businesses and nonprofits throughout that entire 10-town footprint. We go as far north as Bridgewater, Sherman, and New Milford. We of course have Newtown as our eastern flank, as I like to refer to it, and then, as you mentioned, Reading and Richfield sort of as our southern tier, and then the towns, New Fairfield, Bethel, Brookfield, all within that footprint as well too. So yeah, we work with businesses and nonprofits to really sort of focus on the entire economy as a whole. Because what is unique is, and you've already sort of outlined this, we've got individuals who might live in Richfield or Bethel or Newtown, but they work in Danbury or vice versa. And one of my colleagues talks about the uniqueness of our borders being very porous in terms of kind of just cross flow between each town. And again, I find it to be very unique when we look at the state, and there's sort of that common joke that we're the land of steady habits, and there's 169 towns and 169 different identities. But I find Western Connecticut to be pretty unique in that sense that we sort of function as that true regional economy.
I spent many years on the Board of Education in Richfield, and I liked, when we were on the Board of Ed, combining things with Danbury. There was one time I remember that we only had a few young ladies on the gymnastics team, and we talked about maybe doing a team combining with Danbury. So Danbury touches all the communities, and plus you have a great hospital here and a very nice university here. The first time, PJ, I ever heard of the name Danbury, I grew up in Shelton, as I mentioned to you, and my father used to tell me that in the 40s, I think it was, there would be a train that would go from Danbury to Shelton and Shelton to Danbury for its big football game. And I don't know if you ever heard about that. It's a bit of trivia, but there would be big games every year between Danbury and Shelton. And the train rides, apparently, I'm sure there was a little bit of, shall we say, celebration on the trains both ways. But that was a big thing. And again, Shelton's about a 40-minute ride from here. But again, Danbury reached out to other communities, and apparently it was a very nice experience in the 40s and maybe 50s. I don't know exactly how far that went.
Sure. Yeah, excellent. I believe that. I would love to see. That's actually a nice little fun fact there that I never knew about that. We actually, where our office is located, there used to be a train depot, so that was right from here. So
yeah. In going to your mission statement, and I like to do that in my preparation for the shows, you mentioned part of it was the mission includes to support a business environment that sustains economic vitality, promotes economic development, and enhances the appeal to locate, conduct, and grow your businesses in the greater Danbury area. I know when I ask this question, there's a lot of things that your organization does, but give me a couple of examples of what it is that your organization does to try to enhance that part of its mission statement.
Sure. So, first and foremost, one of the items that we focus on keenly is our events and networking, right? So many of our members, when they look to join the Chamber of Commerce, they look for the opportunity to grow their business or their nonprofit as well. And being that conduit, if you will, towards many of the businesses and nonprofits, providing that platform for networking is key, right? And we host dozens and dozens of events throughout the year. We do large ones like the Previty Award in the state of the city. which is held in the beginning of December, we'll get anywhere between 400 to 450 attendees, right? So that has been a huge success for us in terms of building those networks and those connections. But on the other end of the spectrum, we like to host smaller events as well too that are more intimate. We have members that like to come to a smaller setting, right? So they feel a little intimidated walking into a room full of 400 or 500 people. And we find finding that balance to meet the needs of our members is very important. And we have events in between, right? So not just the small ones, the large ones. We have medium-sized events as well too, whether it be those networking events, leadership and educational opportunities, and it really kind of runs the gamut in terms of what events and networking opportunities we provide for our members.
The Prunty mentioned that. I want to talk about the Prunty Award for a minute. Our law firm, by the way, every December, when we plan our holiday party for the staff, we first check and see what the date is for the Prunty Award dinner. And we have a date that's different than that, because one year we had the same date and no one wanted to go to our own party. We wanted to go to the Prunty Award. But the Prunty Award dinner is very important. For those who don't know in the situation, but Danbury Lithography was a very big business back in the 80s, and still I think is. But they lost 4 or 5 of their key employees in a plane crash, and it devastated the community. I was not in Danbury at the time. I came to Danbury in 1990, so it was already after that situation. But apparently Cecil Previty was a greatly loved person who was great for the business community in Danbury. And every year the Chamber of Commerce, Greater Danbury Chamber of Commerce, has an award honoring someone who has been involved in business. But it's not just about being involved in business, it's being involved in the community. I went, of course, again this past year in December of 2023, and Mr. Hawley was awarded. And there were 450 people approximately, I guess, at the Amber Room. And more than just seeing the presentation and the showing about the Previty Award and what the Chamber does, meeting people in the community again. Some people I just see every year at the Previty dinner or luncheon. And I think what you all do at that community session is to bring people together. And I think it's tremendous. Talk to me a little bit about that dinner, the luncheon.
Yeah, so that annual luncheon, which is typically the second Friday of December.
I'll write that down.
for planning purposes, it's good to know. Actually, I think it's Friday the 13th next year. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah, no worries, and I appreciate your comments about the event. And yeah, you did a great job sort of summarizing that. Cecil J. Previty was just a pillar in the community and the business community, and really sort of the the Greater Danbury as a whole. At the time, Mayor Joe Sauer decided to dedicate the award, with the Chamber of Commerce. And actually, one of your former colleagues, Paul Jaber, was instrumental in sort of initiating that award. And so, yeah, since the late 80s, we've been doing that event to honor a local entrepreneur in the Greater Danbury area. And in my opinion, and I think in many other opinions, it's certainly one of the most prestigious awards and business awards that we give out each year. And it's just it's an incredible testament to those that have received that award in terms of the commitment that they have, to the city of Danbury, to the Greater Danbury area, to the overall quality of life, and contributing positively, to the economic development, the economic growth within our city. And as you mentioned, there's a list of dozens of recipients who have just had an incredible impact in our community. And most recently, as you referred to, Gary Hawley from Hawley Companies, who is certainly an incredibly deserving recipient, did a phenomenal job this year of giving the history of his family business and just talking about everything that he has gone through his career. But yeah, that is one of our, if not most well-attended events. And to your point, it's sort of a lot of the who's who in the zoo, as I like to say, that attend that event and that luncheon, and it's certainly one of the ones we look forward to each year.
My former partner in the law, Paul Jaber, was very involved, and he's still alive. Was very much involved. In fact, he went to the luncheon this year, and it's a very important event. But the thing I find every year is we don't realize. I don't think, even though my firm represents a lot of people who've gotten the award, we don't realize how many entrepreneurs there are in the Danbury area. Some amazing national companies are formed right here in Danbury, and it's pretty amazing to hear who's who and what's what in the community. And part of the success, it's a repeated theme I hear in the speeches given by the award winner, is that they almost always say, I'm here where I am because of my family and my employees. I always tell people a good lawyer is defined by how good a legal assistant or legal assistants one has. And whatever success I've had, I give great credit to my legal assistants. But I was hearing these men every year, and women who get the award, talk about the employees they have. And one of the benefits, or actually in your mission statement, talks about creating resources for employee training through strategic alliances. And when you and I spoke the other day in preparing for today, I asked you about what do you do for employees, and it's right smack in the in your mission. Talk a little bit about what you all do to try to bring together employees. And we have a very good unemployment rate in the Danbury area. What does the chamber do to try to help and keep that good record going?
Sure. So we do a lot of work with workforce development. Actually, that was the meeting I just hopped off of. We've had a long, strong relationship with the Northwest Regional Workforce Investment Board, and they are one of the 5 workforce boards located throughout the state of Connecticut. They span the Waterbury, Torrington, and Danbury area, and then the 40 plus or minus towns within that footprint. We serve as sort of that conduit between the resources that exist in the workforce board and the Department of Labor and the needs of our employers within that region. And of course, our focus is within the the greater Danbury and Western Connecticut area. But more specifically, we've shifted focus on manufacturing and healthcare recently with the creation of a regional sector partnership. Of course, we engage with other employees and other industry members as well. Retail, hospitality, healthcare, construction, you name it. But in particular, those 2 industries specifically. And what we were talking about earlier in the week is, workforce staffing, recruitment, retention continues to be one of the, if not the highest sort of stress point for our member businesses and nonprofits. And again, regardless of the industry, you name it, everyone's sort of facing these challenges. So we try to serve as that conduit to sort of make those connections, provide what resources might be available as it relates to on-the-job training or grant dollars that might be available to help onboard employees. And again, we try to make those connections and serve as that the middleman, so to speak, to help some of our members with specific challenges they might have. But yeah, staffing and workforce, that's certainly one of the one of the top priorities for us and our members, no question.
Danbury is fortunate to have a very fine university, Western Connecticut University. We all call it WestCon. And I've been to some of your events where you've honored, I think it was the newest president of WestCon, I think was at one of your sessions. And I also see to find a good connection between the Chamber of Commerce and WestCon. Can you talk a little about that connection and how you guys work to try to have a good, in Yiddish, the word is shidduch, a good marriage between the 2?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they talk a lot about sort of the town and gown component, right? And in this instance, although we're not specifically the town, but we certainly work with many of our local, higher ed too. I mean, Naugatuck Valley Community College as well is a partner of ours, and of course the K through 12 systems throughout the greater Danbury area. But like Western Connecticut State University in particular, and most recently, Dr. Singh, the new interim president, has really doubled down on the importance of connecting, the university with the employers and the businesses, the nonprofits throughout the region to really try to create that synergy between, providing the education for the students and then placing them, in relative jobs and employment opportunities. And we've really sort of taken a laser focused effort to see how we can make that a reality, right? More often than not, we kind of hear this conversation being talked about creating that pipeline, right? That would provide students with the opportunity to graduate, whether it be through a 4-year college at WestCon or even high school, with the recent push for the career academies that's going on through the Danbury Public Schools, which is just an absolutely revolutionary concept. We're basing it off of a model from Nashville, the academies of Nashville, to again really focus on that pipeline component, right? To be able to have students that are going through K through 12, graduating high school, to be lined up to say I can fit right into New Vance or Boehringer or Belimo or a local construction company or a local IT company. Really kind of have those two entities, the employers in the area and the education in the area, really sync up with one another to talk about, hey, this is what we need and this is how we can get there.
It's a very important item to keep. If you stay where you are, you go backwards. You have to keep looking forward. The Career Academy is a very interesting concept in Danbury. I'm not that familiar with what's going on there, but as a former Board of Education member in Richfield, actually I was on Board of Education in Shelton when I was like 24. I was first elected in Shelton. Then we moved to Richfield. I was on 6 more years in Richfield. But the educational connection is so very, very important. And it's important to the community. And it's also important to have the ability for kids who grow up in a town to come back, to have the ability to live there. And I see some developments of more housing that's happening in the Danbury area. That's a really important factor, because if you have a great city like Danbury, people want to come back.
Yeah.
People want to come back to our community.
Yeah. And not only that, I mean, think about the, if you're working and living in the place that you grew up, right, there is a greater chance that you would be willing to volunteer to run for Board of Ed, or volunteer to be a part of the local Lions Club or the Kiwanis Club, or involved in, youth sports and giving back your time to coach, or to giving, being a part of being a scout leader for Boy Scouts. There's just, there's a greater connection that you feel, there's a greater, focus on social capital, which I'm a big fan of, which is that feeling that connectiveness to the community that you live in, and wanting to continue the focus on making it, a great place to live, work, and play. So yeah, I couldn't agree more with you.
Very important. I noticed that you have a chamber legislative newsletter, and please talk to me a little bit about that, what that newsletter is about, why you have it, and how it's utilized as part of your mission with the Greater Danbury Chamber of Commerce.
Sure. So through one of our 3 active councils, we have a legislative council, and the purpose of that is to engage our lawmakers, whether they be state senators or state representatives, with our members, again, whether they be businesses or nonprofits, to keep them apprised of what's going on in Hartford, right? Actually, just I think it was last week, we had our first legislative council meeting for 2024. And of course, just 2 days ago, the session kicked off Wednesday in Hartford. We find it to be incredibly important to have our members' voice be heard, whether it be, in favor of a particular piece of legislation, or more often than not, in opposition to, a particular piece of legislation that might be coming down the pike. And what we find to be very useful is just creating that channel of communication, right, between our legislators and our members. Both parties really enjoy, when I say parties, I don't mean political parties, I mean legislators and the businesses really enjoy that opportunity to kind of connect directly, to hear, right, what are some of the issues, or what are some of the challenges or ideas that our members have to be able to sort of bring to Hartford. And we try to keep them posted with some of the hot button issues that might be coming up. And this is a short session, this legislative session, so not a whole ton of time on the calendar to work with our legislators, but we find it important to kind of keep our members informed of what's going on in Hartford, to kind of keep them apprised.
You've had some breakfasts that I've attended, which you have legislators or other elected officials. I think Governor Lamont came at one particular one, and again, it's an opportunity to sit down and say, "Hey, how are you?" I saw Senator Murphy. Who actually, if you notice, is part of my video that starts out.
I did see that.
That picture was taken at the Amber Room.
Where else? Right?
Yeah, well, and they do a great job. I'm not advertising; just that's where a lot of activities occur.
Oh, I'm advertising them. They're a member, and they do a great job. Absolutely.
They're part of the Danbury Chamber of Commerce.
Yep.
But in any event, Senator Murphy was there, and I had a friend of mine is involved in a group that's Teachers Unify Against Gun Violence, and I have my orange shirt on. And Senator Murphy said, "Hey, I want to see a picture of you." He asked me for the picture. That's how that occurred. But the legislative thing is a very important function of what you do. And what you mentioned something about business communities. the Greater Danbury Chamber of Commerce doesn't just select one company to protect. It's all businesses. It's all employees. You're there to support everybody, and that's what makes it a great thing. Because when you go to those meetings that I've gone to, no one sits around saying, "Well, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican." No, we're all people in the Greater Danbury area who are trying to make our community better. We only have about 3 minutes left, and I would get yelled at by my law partner, Paul Boasusa, who's a member of the Chamber of Commerce, if I didn't mention briefly the women's organization or aspect of your organization.
Sure. Yeah. So as I just referenced to, we've got 3 active councils, Legislative Council being one of them, Young Professionals Council being another, and the Women's Business Council, which has had a relaunch within the past year and a half, large part thanks to Paula's leadership and Helen Brickfield from the Chamber team here. This council has been under the Chamber's umbrella for a little over a decade now, probably closer to 12 years. And the effort here is to engage women throughout the Greater Danbury area in the business environment and nonprofit as well, to meet and discuss, relevant matters each month. We have a couple of marquee events that we do. We actually have one coming up in less than 3 weeks, which is the Heart of Women Award. It's taking place on February 28th at the Amber Room. See, there they come again. And that's an opportunity for us to recognize a woman in the community who's made positive impact within the Greater Danbury area. And this year we're honoring Linda Jones, who founded the organization Fun in Newtown. The Women's Business Council serves as really a great platform for women to meet and discuss, some of the relevant issues that they might be working with within their respective industries. And what the great thing is, it's not just one particular industry, right? It's representative from different organizations, different businesses, and really just a great environment to foster communication and collaboration.
You mentioned we've talked about the Prunty Award, and we've talked about the women's organization as part of your Chamber of Commerce. When Mr. Prunty passed away, his widow, Melissa Prunty, ran the organization for many, many years of Danbury Lithography. And it's a great organization you're doing. I think Paula has gotten a good idea to award women who are in the community. And you have some very, very successful women in our community. Yeah, we have about a minute left in the show. And PJ, I just want to give you the last word before we go. I have 30 seconds. You get 15 seconds to tell us your last thought before we go.
Cool. Well, I guess I would just first off thank you for the opportunity. This is just, as I said, a real great area to live. To raise your family, to start and grow a business. And we talked about the economic trend here is just continually positive, right? We see this area as a great place, to have your business. We love to work with individuals and corporations and businesses and nonprofits of all sizes, right? To kind of help grow their network, grow their brand. And that's really one of the things that I would sort of leave with here is the opportunity to make those connections, build those networks, and really kind of bring back that civic engagement that we love.
PJ, I want to thank you so very much for coming on this show. And by the way, you've been very humble today because I've seen my own eyes. You've done a great job in your 6 years of being the president and CEO. This has been Bobo Potzner on The Bobby O Show. We'll see you again soon. Thank you, PJ.
Thank you, Bobby O. Appreciate it.